Direct Healing by Paul Ellsworth, Chapter 7, How to Realize Abundance. Before any man can come into that life of self-mastery and of kingship of the world about him, which eventually he must be born into, he has to free himself from the subconscious taint which in one form or another touches nearly every human being. This is the idea that misfortune, poverty, sickness, and death are natural to man, and that continued serenity of mind, health of body, and opulence of all good things are too good to be true. Poverty, which includes lack of wealth, health, and love, is rooted in the subconsciousness. It consists of a race idea built into the very matrix of every man's soul, that he is a creation instead of a creator. As long as you believe that you were formed by an exterior power and that your life is directed and surrounded by manifestations of that power, even if you call it God or the infinite spirit, you are going to express in all that you do and all that you are this false idea. Poverty is the logical working out of a lie, which you accepted before you were born, from the men and women whose lives preceded yours. Perhaps personally, I should say probably, you yourself have lived in previous bodies and have helped create this bogey which now terrifies you. It is a long stride from the mental attitude of the children of Israel, who looked upon God as a personal champion of their particular race, a terrible being, utterly beyond and above even themselves, his chosen people, to the final realization of Christ that I and the Father are one. And yet this gap is the one which lies between you, when you believe in the possibility of poverty, and your ultimate and ideal condition when you know that you are a manifestation of creative force, that you are love, wealth, health, and wisdom. You can as easily be separated from yourself as you can from the opulence of infinite life. But poverty exists in city and country, here and across the seas. The poor we have always with us, someone says. Apparently this is true, but in reality it is not. About us are people who are closing themselves, unconsciously of course, to that inflow and outflow of spirit which is typified by breathing. Spiritually they are shallow breathers, but when the disagreeable consequences of the lack which this brings with it have permeated their inner consciousness, they will relax from the tension of fear or avarice or dislike which now grips them and will draw in freely the infinite substance. You would hardly pity the poverty of a man who lived in a great storehouse wherein were all the good things of life, but who kept his fists tight shut and refused to use any of the riches about him. So the problem of the cure of poverty, with which all the civilized world is wrestling in one form or another, reduces itself to the question, how shall a man express and make manifest the abundance which is now and always has been his? And the answer is simple. First, by realizing intellectually that he desires to express this perfect life and that it is natural and easy for him to do so. Second, by permeating and transforming the subconsciousness with this realization. Third, by practicing the science of dynamic, informative spiritual thought, which is possible only to the man who has purged his conscious and subconscious mind of fear and hate and ignorance. Let us consider these 3 steps individually. First, by realizing intellectually that he desires to express this perfect life and that it is natural and easy for him to do so. After a man has lived long enough at the mercy of events, after he has been buffeted and harassed by fear and accident and misfortune, there comes to him a dawning consciousness of the fact that he is not living the life he should live. Usually this comes First is a question. What is the meaning of all this suffering? What am I here for anyhow? Then the mocking thought arises. This would be a pretty fair world if I could make it over. I would be a king and a master of events. I would have abundance, and there would be no troubles waiting around the corner. At this point, race beliefs usually exhibit for a while any farther advance. The Spirit of Truth is trying to drive him into the light, to force him to learn through misfortune what he will not learn by any other method. And eventually there awakens within him the transforming realization. I am a king, a master of the events of my own life. Intellectually, he begins to see that the Spirit of infinite love, which is working in and through him, has nothing to gain by his suffering, and that except as he himself creates it, suffering has no place in his life. He is beginning to realize that not only does he desire to express perfect life, but that it is the most natural thing in the world for him to do. As long as this realization remains on the surface and is confined to the conscious mind, it is almost without effect. The great flywheel of subjective thought keeps on driving the machinery in the same direction in which it has been driving it so long. And until the subconsciousness is permeated by truth and regenerated, it will continue to manifest imperfections of various kinds. Here is where a great many who have turned toward the light fail. For having conceived intellectually the possibility of the perfect life, they fail to understand why it should not at once become manifest. I no longer believe in nor desire the old imperfect conditions, so why can't I drop them out of my existence? Because your intellect is only the little lever by which you can eventually but slowly turn the great subconscious forces in the direction you would have them take. For a time you must battle against the momentum gathered during generations of evil or ignorant-minded men. The change will be very slow at first. Consciously, you will realize and will declare that you are master of the forces and things about you, but ingrained fear and doubt will inhibit your perfect demonstration. When you would do good, evil is present within you. You are done with lack and limitation, but they are not done with you, and you will not be until you have conquered them. But the fight is worth winning. The terms autosuggestion, affirmation, and denial have been somewhat abused of late years. Great things have been claimed for them, and when used intelligently, there is no limit to their usefulness. But there are affirmations and affirmations. Not all of them are quickened with power. In the first place, when you realize that your subconscious mind must be cleansed from error and permeated with truth, you will probably begin by attacking error as if it were a positive thing, instead of being merely a lack. It is all right enough to deny various undesirable appearances, but it is better to put the emphasis on building up that which you want to express. To replace is to conquer, and you will not have to bother about destroying evil if you will permeate the place where it has seemed to exist with good. The great affirmations of the Christ were of this positive and corrective order. I am the resurrection and the life. I and the Father are one. I am the light. He did not say, I am not death, but I am life. Make your statements to the subconsciousness positive and emphatic. Build up truth always, and the darkness of error and imperfection will disappear of itself. The subconsciousness is the realm of emotions, of feelings. The vibrations of love, hate, courage rise into the physical and the mental from this great unseen reservoir. And the way back to the subconsciousness leads along the same track. You must feel your affirmations. Those which are simply recognized and considered intellectually are practically barren. You must state that condition which you desire to create so clearly and positively and convincingly, and must hold to it so persistently that you live it for the time. When you repeat, "I am the resurrection and the life," do it slowly and dynamically, holding your attention upon the fact that this is the profoundest truth. See yourself as a luminous and quickening presence, vibrating through and through the grosser mechanisms of the flesh. When you say, "I am one with infinite and primal abundance," hold in your mind the idea of yourself as a perfect channel through which flows, at its proper time, everything needful. You will find that in arousing the emotions or feelings, certain phrases are much more potent than others. The simple and vibrant words of the Christ are singularly powerful in this respect, and you may use them wherever they fit your needs. They will arouse that quickened conviction which is the sure forerunner of success, and they are as true of you as they were of Jesus of Nazareth. They are true of every man when he comes out from the house of bondage. In formulating your own affirmations, be simple and direct and positive. You cannot state the truth too emphatically. Nothing is too good to be true, and your only error will be in falling short of the full vision of perfection. And you may find that a statement which profoundly thrilled you when you first considered and pondered it gradually loses its power over your emotions and convictions. Then you must state the same thing in a different way, experimenting day by day until you reestablish the current. In utilizing the power of affirmations, you will find that your magnet has two poles. One is faith and the other is fear. Much has been said and written about faith. Unless you have faith, you will accomplish little on any plane of life. If you doubt your ability to do physical things by the ordinary physical methods, you will not accomplish them or will do so but imperfectly. If, however, you have faith in your power to attract an abundance of all good things through purely spiritual dynamics, you will succeed to the uttermost. And what is this all-potent and prevailing thing or principle called faith? It is merely an intuitive or spiritual perception of the great law that cause and effect are inseparable, and that when any man furnishes the one, he is bound to receive the other. Faith does away with the bugaboo of an unwilling God and a favored people. It does more than this. By assuring the man who it permeates that when he has complied with the law of spiritual sowing, the harvest is assured and can no more fail than can the universe itself. It holds him steadfast and receptive until the unseen but mighty currents of spiritual energy have brought him that which he desires. The law of faith is, "Thou shalt not consider physical appearances, which are but the shadow and outgrowth of spiritual changes, but shall remember that when thou hast decreed a thing, it shall be established unto thee. And sooner than this shall fail, shall the universe itself be destroyed." So when your faith is established, you will breathe out your demand for all things which you desire and will wait serene and unswerving and masterful until the spiritual quickening is accomplished and unseen things become seen. Faith, like all other faculties, grows by use. At first, you will have to be dogmatic. Will have to refuse absolutely to consider the doubts which will arise while you are waiting. But as you persist, the habit of looking through the physical shadow to the spiritual reality working back of it will become natural and inevitable, and prevailing faith will be yours. So far, we have considered those emotions and beliefs of the individual which might hinder or help him in his first efforts to utilize the higher forces. We have seen that a man must decide definitely that he desires to cast off the old limitations of fear and ignorance, and that he must realize intellectually the reasonableness and possibility of so doing. That he must extend his conscious decisions and belief into the subjective realm or subconsciousness, and that he must do this by the use of dynamic thought formula or autosuggestions, quickened by faith, and we have decided that faith is but another name for spiritual or real perception of truth, which naturally and inevitably frees its possessor from fear and doubt and all mistaken ideas. Now it is necessary to go a step farther and to consider the laws which govern the use of spiritual forces outside of the man himself. After he has, in a measure, regenerated his beliefs, and so has come into the mastery of himself, it is time for him to learn to rule the objective and physical kingdom about him. It is manifestly impossible by autosuggestion or affirmations to the individual subconsciousness to control the external world. But affirmations nevertheless are the key to this new kingdom. The subconsciousness of each individual is continued until it becomes one with the great subconscious mind of nature or the universe. And here, as within the limits of the ego, a dynamic statement, an ideal perfectly formed and faithfully projected, is the quickening and formative life germ which draws to itself whatever it needs of material and blends and harmonizes and perfects, according to the pattern which it embodies. The visible universe was created by the Word of God, and you, as a perfect expression of all that God is, can create in the same way. If you choose to create by the sweat of your brow and by the agony of brain and body, you may do so, but it isn't necessary. This is the indirect and imperfect way of doing things. The other way is for you to come into your kingship, to awaken to the fact that you are a ruler and a creator, a director, whose duty it is to mold and perfect the physical by the utilization of spiritual forces. The constant desire of the Father Spirit within you is that you may become perfect even as He is perfect, that you may become so regenerated in consciousness that you will do things directly and easily, instead of imperfectly and with agony of mind and body. The old belief in the sacredness of toil and suffering and disappointment is not logical. There is virtue in pain, just to the extent that it arouses the individual to rebel against it and all other limitations, and to claim his birthright of freedom and power and love and abundance. In forming those ideals with which you purpose to create and bring into visibility the wonderful things which you have perceived or desired, but which are as yet invisible, there are a few suggestions which may prove useful. One is that you will find it much more simple to accomplish something which appeals to you personally than to do something because it will bring you money or fame. How does this apply to the cure of poverty? Very directly. That man who seeks abundance by working at a calling which he does not hold in the highest esteem is working against his own best interests, no matter how much he may seem to accomplish. Don't say, I would like to be a musician or a painter or an architect or a master builder, but I must be something entirely different because I can make a living at my present calling, while I probably have not the ability to succeed in the one I fancy. Remember, you are a creator, a master, and can do anything that can be done. Not at once, perhaps. Again applies the law of seed time and harvest. But eventually you can bring forth faculties which will make you a success in that line which you desire to follow. Never mind appearances. If you desire to do any work in the universe and desire it because it satisfies the creative impulse within you, not merely for sentimental reasons, you can do it and do it perfectly. Perhaps the phrenologist will tell you that you lack this or that necessary faculty. Never mind. An intelligent faculty is merely an instrument, and if you lack it, you have that which is of infinitely greater importance, the power to create faculties at will. Have you ever studied the way in which a child learns to do the things he wants to? His first efforts are crude, and he casts aside the results with that supreme wisdom of babies which looks not upon the thing done, but upon the doing of it as the important thing. He tries again and again, 1,000 times, and gradually his chubby fists grow skillful, and his weird lines and angles begin to take form and meaning. He began without the faculty, but he didn't know it and didn't care. He created the ability to do by knowing that he desired to do and by persistently trying. But you are no longer a child, true, and you have gradually laid aside some of the wisdom of childhood and have acquired the false ideas of your neighbors. Among them that venerable lie that you cannot now learn as easily as you could when you were a youngster. You must discard that old notion about the brain of a child being wax, upon which were easily impressed new ideas and abilities. The physical matrix of the child is not greatly different from yours, but he knows that he can learn to do what he wants to do, and you have decided that you can't. There is nothing that you could do as a child which you can't do better now, for your powers of concentration and clear thinking are better developed. So if you are not in the right business, get into it. Look within yourself, study your desires, and choose accordingly. Abundance of all good things will come to you when you resolve to live your own life as the inner wisdom bids you to lead it. And your real desires are the only voice of this wisdom. When you have chosen or confirmed your life work, you will begin to discover that your success in utilizing the spiritual forces varies greatly at different times. Occasionally, perhaps often at first, you will feel that your faith and power have died silently within you and that you are like a dead battery. Never mind, this is simply ebb tide, and the best thing for you to do is to rest, sincerely conscious that your power is not dead, but that it will soon quicken you with a new vigor. These spiritual swings are puzzling at first, but you will find that they partake of the great rhythm which permeates the universe. Physical energy follows the same law. You may have believed that you were equally strong throughout the day, but the physical scientists could tell you that there are at least 2 periods of diminished and 2 of quickened vigor. So when your word seems to return to you without effect, merely rest and wait till the next time of quickening and again formulate it and breathe it out into the universal ether. When you pray or suggest or affirm, when you utilize that power of dynamic thinking, an ideal building, which is your most potent faculty in ruling over both yourself and the external world, you must remember that in all things there is an active and a passive part. Real prayer is not all spoken. It is receptive as well as formative. And when you have projected your serene and dynamic desire into the ether, you must relax and let yourself become neutral, poised and serene, but receptive instead of positive. There is no fixed time relation between these 2 parts of prayer or affirmation, no formula which will tell you how long to be positive and how long passive. You will know without this, following your desire, your instinct, and you will adjust one to the other perfectly. But do not try to remain dominant and positive all the time. Formulate your desires definitely and vibrantly, and hold to this ideal as long as you feel yourself thrilled with it. Then relax and rest. This is the place of the silence, and in it you are quickened with power to do and to attract, although you may feel nothing. Perhaps I have seemed to speak of many things which did not concern the realization of abundance. But abundance is more than the possession of physical means or objects. Its opposite, poverty, is a spiritual condition in which the individual is closed through ignorance to the permeating consciousness of abundance. Infinite wealth and health and love surround him, but he is too tense to receive. He cannot be cured of this spiritual malady by the infusion of any patent medicine. Stereotype formula may help, but his ultimate cure must come through his perception of the principles which govern life, and his personal reconciliation with these principles. He must learn that I and the Father are one, and that no human being except himself can deprive him of anything he desires. End of chapter 7 of Direct Healing by Paul Ellsworth.